So in this class, we are going to finish up the remaining functional test type, and we are going to write test cases for them. And it's a test login Facebook. It's a login test, log test. So make it as LT, and we are going to write the first test case for it. Okay. So log testing is basically very much helpful. Let's say you are using the application and all of a sudden you saw a crash. Okay, your browser got crashed. Okay, or all of a sudden, so earlier you used to log in with the same username and password, and all of a sudden it's not allowing you to log in. Okay, and remember, logs will not be accessible for the most of the times it will not be accessible for the users. It's for testing purpose. Let's say these are the problems. So in that case, what we can do is go to the logs. Okay, so every time whenever user is performing some operation on the application, and each and every activity will be recorded, and it will be posted on a log file. It will be posted on a log file. Okay, so in any case, if the user has any problem such as it got crashed, or it got not allowing, he has seen some unknown errors or unwanted errors. Okay, so he can go to the log files. Okay, so that could be in a installation folder. Somewhere in the installation folder you can able to find out the user logs, and you can open one of the log, and you can see what was the problem. Okay, so once he sees the log file and he don't find any logs, or if he find a log which is not useful for him, okay, he find the logs but there is no information related the issue. Okay, in that case, he might frustrated. Okay, so for that reason, as a tester, we have to make sure that when something is occurred in the application, like system is crashed, or unknown errors and unwanted errors are coming, and all of a sudden the system is responding very slow. Okay, so it's recommended to go through the logs and see so what are the error information you are seeing. Okay, and as a tester, what we have to do is we have to generate the error scenario. Okay, so we have to make something wrong in the application, and so that, let's say you are trying to access the application and all of a sudden you make it as offline. Okay, you just remove the internet connection and try to access the application and see what kind of logs you are getting in the system. Okay, uh, you are in the middle of the application, okay, right now. Okay, and just remove the internet connection or just remove the database connection. Okay, so and just see what kind of logs you are getting. Okay, and make sure those are it has given the proper information, something like that. Okay, yeah, everyone please be on mute. Raj or Swapna, Sonia, Sunny, what else we can write? Any guesses? Even Mohit. So one is we can make sure that DB connection is lost and see. So it says that a database connection failure. Okay. So let's say there is a configuration file.
Invalid username and invalid password.
Yeah, that's true, Swapna. But what we do, so when we give invalid username and password, what happens? We can able to see on the browser itself. Okay, something we don't see on the browser, so that has to be definitely taken care in printing in the logs. Okay, for example, every application has to be configured a lot. Okay, so if you take a telecom application or some application, before we deploy it, before we run it, we have to we have to configure so many things, so many XML files, or so many configuration file .txt files. Okay, we have to configure, we have to do some configuration. Okay, let's say one of the configuration we made it as invalid. Like some of the, so for example, configurations are nothing but how many users this application can allow. Okay, and that's one thing. Okay, how much, how many times we have to take the backup every day. Okay, how frequently we have to take the backup. If it is a banking application, taking the backup is very much important. Okay, so in that case, how many times we have to take the backup and how frequently we have to take the backup. Do we have to take the backup every 1 hour or every 2 hours, or once in a once in 3 hours, something like that. We have to configure it. Okay, so let's say if you give some invalid configuration, instead of hours you give in a some string. Okay, so they said give 1 or 2 or 3, like that, some number, but we have given so ONE 1 hour, something like that. Okay, so you made some invalid configuration, make some invalid, make some of the configuration invalid. Okay, so when we have to give, before we start the this one, we have to give before starting the application. Okay. We can say start the application with some of the invalid configuration. Okay, now click on the login button. Okay, so it depends on the configuration whether it is, see, for if it is a banking application, taking the backup is very much important. Okay, so in that case, what, so if the configuration value is very much important, in that case the application will not be started until you correct the issue. Okay, so it gives configuration name and its value, so that you can able to understand what is the configuration name and what is the value you enter wrongly. Okay, so it will be says like this, something like this. If the configuration is not so important, it gives a warning message and it goes ahead. Okay, if the configuration is very much important, it will not allow you to, it will not allow you to until you correct the issues. Now restart testing. Okay, restart testing is nothing but, so restart your application and execute one or two test cases. Okay, one is with valid, one is with invalid. Okay, so make sure even after restarting your application is able to work, your application is able to access and things are working fine. Okay, it is not a standard test type, so based on our experience we defined it. Sometimes when we restart and access the application, the images will not be loaded properly. The images will not be loaded properly. That's the reason. So it is recommended to use. It is recommended to test after restarting the application at least one or two test cases. Okay, let's take this one only. One is with valid. So open the Facebook on a browser by using the URL, that is www.facebook.com. Enter valid username, enter valid password, and click on login button. What is the expected output? It should allow to log in, and it should not allow to log in. And apart of that, one more thing which we need to ensure is all images and labels are loaded correctly. Okay, this is the actual issue.
Microsoft Excel. Product activation failed. Test all. Enter. Test case template.xlsx. Pane. Narrator settings window. Press any key. Exiting narrator.
Okay, this is perfect. Let's look into compatibility testing. So yeah, somebody can give me information what is compatibility testing?
It should work in all browsers.
Okay, and what else?
Different environment.
Exactly, that's right. So when you say different environment, what does it mean?
That mean
So one is browsers, okay, and the other one is Swapna, Raj, Mohib. Somebody can tell me the other thing. So Sunny has given some more information to us.
maybe it shouldn't crash.
Like Windows, Mac.
Yeah, sure. That's right. That's right. Okay. Okay. So I think see, the previous one is for restarting testing. Okay. Testing. Okay. So by mistake, I have written, this is restart testing. Whatever we just written related to restart testing. Okay. Installation testing, we need to write it. We don't need to write it because we have not, you know, selected it for that particular test type. We are not marked it, right? We didn't mark it. Okay, let's leave about that. Okay, yes, Swapna, you are right. Windows, Mac, Linux. Okay, a different, in fact, different browsers, different operating systems, and these applications will be deployed on servers. Okay, maybe you are very new to server, but server is nothing but which is an environment, okay, which is allows you to run your application. Okay, so which serves a user request. Okay, server will set in a remote mission when a user access the application through a URL and send a request. The request will actually hit the server where your application is deployed, and this server will give the response to the user back. Okay, and these servers varies from different things. There is a Oracle, a Glassfish server, and Tomcat server, and web application server, a WebSphere server. Okay, there are JBoss. There are different kinds of servers. The responsibility of server is that takes the request from the user and send the response back. Okay, how a user sends a request, he accesses the application through the browser, and when he press some buttons or when he enters something, the request actually will hit the server where your application is deployed, and the server will give the response back. So that's about server. Server will helps your application to be deployed and receives the request and sends the response. Okay, that's what you can remember right now. Okay, so when you say environment, it's different kinds of browsers and different kinds of operating systems and different kinds of servers. Okay, we have to make sure that our application is tested in all supported environments. Okay, and by the way, who gives the environment details to us? Okay, who gives the environment details to us? Again, somebody, Swapna, Sonia, Sunny, and Raj, Mohib.
Customer.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so it's not like we assume something and we have to write test cases. We have to look into the requirements and see what customer expecting from the environments. Okay, and those environments we have to test it. Okay, for example, so customer is expecting Firefox. Your application should be accessible on Firefox, IE, Chrome, Safari. Okay, so he has not mentioned about Opera. Remember, okay, it has to be deployed on Mac and Linux, okay, and Windows. He mentioned all the OS. Okay, and let's look into what kind of OS. Okay, so my Linux, Red Hat, Linux, and Windows 8.1, 10. Okay, now there are two versions of Windows, right? And he mentioned the application should be deployable on Tomcat and WebSphere, something like this. There are the two famous application. You know, this is app server. This is a web server, whatever it is. So these are the environment he asks you to test it. Okay, he has to make sure your application is works in this environment. Okay, and so in this case, we have to write some test cases. So one is with valid and one is with invalid. Okay. So all these are like your test, your application is functionally working very properly. Now we just making sure that it is also able to work in different kinds of environments. That's it. Okay. Make sure you have defined the environment. Okay. Otherwise, we'll forget where we have to test it. Let's say Windows 8.1 plus it should be deployed on Tomcat plus it should be deployed on Firefox. Okay. Now take the same thing. Also make sure Tomcat. Okay. IE. What else? Safari. So we need to make sure that we covered all combination of environments. Okay. And Mac. Sorry, let's say Opera. I don't know. Let's say Chrome. Some you test with 10.1, 10.1. Okay, 2 test cases you can do on this environment, and take this one again, paste it here, and now instead of Tomcat, you can take WebSphere server. So somehow you can apply your thought, and then make sure you covered all kinds of environments which is supported by the which customer asked you. Okay, now let's check.
Will that information be given to us?
Yeah, definitely by the customer. We can able to get that one in the requirement document.
Okay.
Yes. It is
And
not like, yeah, it is something we should assume. Okay, we should not assume anything here. Okay, whatever customer asked you, the same thing only we have to make sure.
Okay.
That is a Mac user method.
So Mac is not compatible with Tomcat.
It is compatible. Yeah, we had to, that's what we had to make sure. That's right. You're right. Right. Okay. We had to write 1 or 2 with Tomcat also. Right. If you apply permutation and combination, you'll be getting so many combinations, but somehow we have to manage that. Okay. Let's make it something with okay. So this is with WebSphere, right? Now you can see this is right. Okay, here also you can apply. So one is with okay, Linux is perfect. Okay, here also you can apply Tomcat. Okay, so this is the reason automation will be very much helpful for us. Okay, WebSphere is a server like Tomcat. Okay, let's make it smaller one. Make sure all combinations are tested at least once. Okay, and what is the expected output? With valid details, application should allow you to log in. Okay, with invalid details, application should not allow you to log in. Okay, so this is what my expectation, and same for the other test cases too. Okay, that's fine. Now let's come back. Any doubts here? So environment compatibility testing is nothing but we have to make sure that our application is accessible in all kinds of environments which is given by the customer. Okay, so we have to write the test cases wisely to support our application is working in all other, all the environments supported by the, given by the customer. Okay. So we have to make sure widely we have to define the test cases so that we reduce a number of times, number of times deploying or number of times accessing all those things. We have to define it wisely. Let's say if I take 8.1 version, I'm deploying WebSphere and Tomcat and making sure I'm using all kinds of browsers. Okay. If I take Linux, okay, there's only one kind of Linux, that is Red Hat Linux, what customer has given to us. Okay, customer has given to us Linux Red Hat. Okay, so in that case, I'm applying WebSphere server and Tomcat server. I'm deploying WebSphere as well as Tomcat, and I'm accessed from all kinds of variant browsers. So we have to write the test cases widely so that we avoid deploying many times and accessing uh, many times. Okay, we have to wisely write and making sure that we tested in all kinds of environments. Compatibility, acceptance testing. Okay, so what is the acceptance test cases? Can somebody explain me?
Customer check randomly, it's a acceptance.
Okay, yeah, something like that. So acceptance test cases are very basic test cases, we can say. What a customer, when I say acceptance test cases, what a customer is expecting from this feature. It's a login feature. Okay, what customer is required from this feature, what he is expecting from this feature. Okay, at least two things. One is when he gives a proper details, it has to be allowed to login. When he gives the invalid details, it should reject for login, right? Okay, this is the basic expectations from the customer. Where you get these expectations of customer, you can get from the requirements only, not from anywhere. Okay, we have to go to the requirements. What was the requirement given by the customer for a login feature? Go through that requirement and look into read one or two times this particular requirement and make sure you understand it and write few test cases related to the customer expectations. Okay, so basically when it comes to the login feature, so it's just about when he gives a proper details, it has to be login, and when he gives invalid details, it has to be login, it has to be rejected, right? At the same time, the design of application, the design of login page should appear very neatly, and it looks impressive, something like that. Okay? Otherwise, even though the functionality is working perfectly, so you will not be satisfied. Okay, the look and feel is important, right? When somebody sees your application, so they doesn't know anything about your application, just by seeing look and feel, just by seeing different kinds of design, they will be impressed with your application. One of the expectation is this one: when you give valid information, it has to allowed login. Okay, and when you give invalid details, it should reject the login, and the login web page should be designed properly. Okay, should looks good with the proper images at something. Okay, he wants to ensure. Okay, so basically what he's expecting is that, so it should looks nice, and the images are placed at the right place. Okay, so that anybody who tries to use the application, they feel good. Okay, that's what is the expectation. Okay, so requirements, right? Requirements are something collected by the product owner, and you'll kept in an Excel sheet or somewhere, some tool you will be using, where you'll be collecting the requirements from the customer and you'll be storing there. Okay, and anybody can access those requirements and can read it. Okay, only he'll be having the permissions to edit it, and others can look into those requirements and they can understand and they can explore. Not a tester or developer will be gathering the requirements. Their job is to just write the test cases. When it comes to developers, they have to they have to build the application. Testers have to test it and break the application. When it comes to product owner, he is responsible for gathering the requirements, contacting the customer, so all those things.
So in the software development lifecycle, the requirement should be given by the owner too, right?
Repeat means only once again.
I say when we do the requirement phase, so most of the information also be given by the designer or the owner of the application we're going to test.
Designer, okay. You mean the web UI designer, web page designer?
Yes.
Okay, so he will be, yeah, he also has access to the requirement, okay, and make sure as per the requirement he is designing the web page, okay. So everything comes from the requirements only, okay. Requirements is at the top level, and which is the base for everyone, okay. And from there onwards, we'll be writing the test cases, and developers by looking into the requirements, they will be developing the code, something like that. Okay, for everyone, for everything, the requirements are the base. Okay, so everything we design, everything we test should match to the requirement. So we are going according to the requirements, so there should not be any deviation from the requirement. Okay, for example, you take e-commerce sites only. So I'm not sure about US and all, in India, some other places. So what happens, not every time, it happens rarely only. Even though, let's say somebody order a phone, they will be getting some iron rod or something, some different other products. Okay, so the customer is expecting a mobile phone, but he is getting something else. Okay, so that's a deviation, right? So in the same way, we have to make sure, as a testers, as a developers, we have to make sure that we are not deviating from the requirements. Okay, if a customer asks you to provide a username and password in the web page, okay, so you went ahead a step, you went a step ahead and also provided a captcha code, okay, thinking that it might add security. Okay, but customer is not asked you, or customer is not expected that, but you went a step ahead and thinking that, okay, this is a good feature to add for the login, as it ensures the security. You added it. Okay, so customer may happy or may not happy. Okay, everything we have to talk with the customer, we have to decide with the customer. Okay, because if it is an internal application, it's not really required. Captcha code and all is not required. It is used by their employees. Okay, so that's not required. Okay, who will hack the application, from the employee itself. Okay, that doesn't happen. Okay, let's discuss about so acceptance test cases are, at least 2 or 3 you have to write from the requirements. Okay, so you don't need to test with special characters, invalid characters, or maximum size, minimum size. Okay, so all those permutations and combinations, you don't need to do that. Okay, the very basic expectations from the customer. Okay, exactly, you have to write 2 or 3 test cases. If you write 4 also, that's okay, but you have to make sure that what is the actual expectations of the customer for this requirement. Exactly, write 1 or 2 test cases. Usually these test cases are written by the product owner, and from him you can able to take it, but sometimes if they are not written, you have to write on your own. Okay, so let's find security testing. Okay, when it comes to usability, let's talk about security testing. Okay, let's finish it quickly. It's not so difficult. Let's take this one. What is that we are going to write? So can somebody explain me what we have to ensure on the security?
It's not showing the password
Yeah.
in the login.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Make sure the information doesn't pop up in the URL.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. There are many security test cases. For login, this is enough. Okay, and name and password should not be displayed on the URL. Okay. Okay. Let's take one more test case. So whatever is the case, whether it is invalid or valid, in fact, one test case is enough. Okay, in one test case, let's keep it to. That's okay. So it's saying with invalid details, the application should not allow you to log in. Not allow you to log in. That's it. Okay. So when you say, let's take an example of Google Drive. Okay. So you have shared a document to a person. Okay. A person A shared a document to person B. Okay. And he has given read permission. A has given read permission to the B, but B also able to write it on. Okay. B had actually got write permission, so he had modified the document. So it's a big problem, right? Okay, that's a security problem. I have given a read permission and he got the write permission, he edited it. Okay, and when he has the edit permission, a write permission, he can also able to delete the document. So that will be a severe problem. Okay, so that is like that is like authorization. Okay, so who are authorized to access it, who are authorized to edit it, who are authorized to delete it. Okay, security are two types. One is, you can note down. Okay, let me write here only so that. Okay, security testings are two types. One is authorization, okay, and authentication. Okay, when it comes to authorization, who are eligible to access, edit and delete. Okay, and when it comes to authentication, okay, in fact create also, who are authorized to access, edit, delete and create. Okay, all those things. Okay, so when it comes to authentication, who are eligible to log in or perform this particular operation. Here in the authentication, basically the username and password or the authentication details will be validated, and if he is authenticated properly, he will be allowed to perform the action. Okay, most of the times this authentication happens at while logging. Okay, in fact, when you are creating an application, also when you're creating something, also it will make sure whether you are the right person to create it or not. It will authenticate. Once it is authenticated, okay, your username and password are exist in the database and you are one of the employees, yes, you can go ahead. But when you actually try to create it, again it will authorize whether you are have right permission to create it or not. Okay, there are two things: authentication and authorization. Authorization checks your permission things. Okay, so do you have permissions to write, edit, delete, create, something like that? And authentication makes sure that, are you really a existing a person, are you really a existing user, are you really a existing employee? Okay, it ensures that. Okay, and localization is nothing but testing the application. Somebody please tell me, testing the application in different languages, right? Okay. So if I change the browser to Chinese, it has to be displayed on the Chinese. If I change the browser to Korean, all my labels and all my no, in fact images too should be displayed in the Korean language. If I change my language to French, all my labels and images, and it has to answer the data, okay, also in French. Okay, that's what. So we are pending with these two things. One is
Usability testing and
uh,
localization.
okay, how come we got the two accessibility usability testing? Okay.
The security testing.
Okay, the security testing is
Mm.
perfect. Testing the application in different language. Okay, when it comes to usability, how easy for the
Very-
user to access your application. Okay, so these two things are pending. As I said, Swapna, usability and localization testing is pending. We'll be working on tomorrow. Okay,
Okay.
and not only that, we'll be finishing writing the non-functional test cases, and with that we'll be completed writing the one complete test case design, and from there onwards you will be given assignments to write for other test cases. I mean, write test cases for other features or functionality, and I'll be start reviewing it and making sure you are going in a right direction. Okay, that's all. So that's how. Okay, fine. Then we'll meet tomorrow. Thanks everyone. Thanks. Yeah, Sonia, Swapna, and Raj, Mohib. Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.